and introduce today's speaker, Jonathan Meyer, the Senior Solutions Engineer for HawkSearch by Bridgeline. Bridgeline has worked with a number of large electrical wholesalers, and I think he's got some great information to share. As I mentioned, he's a Senior Solutions Engineer for HawkSearch by Bridgeline. He's been working in the search, navigation, and recommendations world for more than 7 years with a focus on solving enterprise-level problems in this space. Jonathan, I'm going to hand it over to you at this point.
Excellent, excellent. Thanks for the wonderful introduction, Jim. Looking forward to having a little quick rundown of some of the key ways that we can really think about how to improve search from a B2B electrical distribution kind of focus. So, as you said, thanks for giving me the wonderful introduction there, giving that wonderful background on my role here with the company. I'm going to go ahead and dive right into it just so we can get started and really start to walk through what we're hoping to cover today. So, if you take away anything from this presentation today, what I really hope that you take away is how to cut through that complex catalog that you guys have in this space and convert those searches into sales. Search, I think, very commonly gets kind of thought about as a Google problem. And in the B2B space, in the electrical distribution space, it is something that is really more powerful on the actual site itself. Because you have your audience, you have those visitors that are going to be coming to you and looking to, find what they're looking to purchase and move along through that process. So there's several different kind of things that we'll talk about as it relates to this. But this is kind of what we're hoping to cover for you today and help you understand what we're going to be talking about. So, again, we'll break that down a little bit more for you here. The key areas that we're going to cover to help you accomplish this, we're going to be breaking down the site into key areas to drive conversion, how you can direct traffic exactly to the right product for purchase, identify new opportunities to raise the value of every shopping cart. Because there's several different points to this. It's not just the search experience that we're going to be focusing on. It really is kind of the mindset behind that and what those visitors are doing. But we'll start with kind of the top of funnel and kind of, I think this is where everyone's first thought usually is when they start thinking about, well, how is search going to help me improve my experience here and really help my visitors on the site? And really, those are going to be things like, your PPC clicks, your backlinks. You start thinking about on-page SEO. You're thinking about like image quality and things like, what's the organic Google search? How is that driving those results? That's all very important things to make sure that you start, you're paying attention, that you're keeping in mind that aspect of the experience there. But really what we see is that if you can get people to the site, that doesn't always necessarily mean that they're going to convert off of that information. Having, ranking well in Google, having that appear in that experience can be very important. It can be critical in some regards, but once they've gotten onto the site, things can still fall apart there. Low engagement, low conversion, lost revenue. Those are obviously the problems that we're trying to avoid. And so what we really want to focus on and how we're going to be talking about the experience here is really going to be looking about the on-site search. It's really kind of the secret weapon to driving conversions and increasing average order value. The traffic from that top funnel, the top gear that you're seeing there on this slide here, that's driving people to your actual site. Well, once they get there, we want to make sure that they're having a good experience, that they're finding what they're looking for, that they're able to complete that purchase, add on additional items, make sure that they're getting the accessories that should be going with those products, and making sure that they're kind of having the best experience, because that's going to be one of the other key benefits to this whole idea, this whole kind of exercise is if you can provide a good experience to your visitors, provide that good UX, good kind of time on that site, they're going to be more likely to return to you and continue to use your search, your commerce experience to find what they're looking for in the future. So let's dive into that. Let's get into the actual points that we want to cover for this. Once someone has arrived to your site, there's usually going to be 4 different kind of motivations, 4 basic groups. We kind of call these user intents. There's going to be informational, searching, navigational, and of course, transactional. And the end goal here, transactional, is kind of where we want everyone to end up at, but the starting point is important to think about. So if we're thinking about someone has landed on the site, we want to make sure that we're thinking about how visitors are going to be moving through the site, what that experience will look like, what are the tools that we can have on hand to help improve that functionality. And we're going to break this down for you, walk through kind of each level of what these areas are, what these intents are, and explain how you can help take advantage of that. So let's move into the first one, informational. This is someone who is on the hunt. They don't necessarily know what they're going to be looking to purchase right away. They might have the idea. Maybe they're looking to compare like user reviews. Maybe they're looking to compare product attributes. These are going to be the people who are looking for information around the product they're hoping to eventually purchase, but they're looking to you not from necessarily a commerce perspective, but to help them make an informed decision on that. So, what are the common habits of that informational visitor? Of course, they're going to be reading reviews. They're going to be looking for, well, what have other members of my industry actually said about this product? What are comparing the product attributes? If products are very similar to each other, maybe we're talking about a difference of brand name. Are there different qualities of that? Is one flammable and one's not flammable? What's the length, the diameter, the material that something is made out of? What's the tensile strength? All of these, voltage, wattage, amperage, all of these are going to be different things that you're going to be considering as an informational visitor. You're trying to really just gather as much information so you can make that informed decision. The opportunity as a brand. So what can you do here? You can use this as a chance to really be transparent. It is not the time necessarily to make the hard sales pitch. You have all of these products that the visitor is going to be looking for and going to be researching. So you want to give them as much information as possible. You want to make sure that you're presenting, specification sheets, MDS sheets, that you're presenting, the user information, the product attributes, that you're giving them that functionality so they can make that informed decision around the product they're looking to purchase. So going through that research phase, how can we make that as easy as possible for them? So what are the tools that are going to assist that visitor? Well, as we're talking about here, obviously having a good autocomplete is going to be something that will help a visitor understand. If I started to type into the search box, this is what I'm looking for, having that autocomplete start to suggest different ideas to me of them. These are things that I actually carry, that this site carries, that these are things that I can find here. Getting me to that right set of results is going to be important. The comparison functionality we were talking about there, so the ability to say, I've got multiple products, I want to highlight these, add 3 or 4 products to a comparison sheet, click compare, and then see a nice grid breakdown of what those products are and how those are going to be contrasted against each other. So I can make sure that I'm looking at the values that are important to me around this set of products, and I'm finding the right ones that I'm looking for there. Recommendations can be an important part of making sure that when an informational visitor is looking for a set of products, leveraging recommendations, which I think is more commonly kind of viewed as this this commerce piece of it. It can be an educational resource. It can be an informational resource, because if I'm looking at a product detail page and I'm not necessarily certain that this is the one that I'm looking for, using recommendations for you may also like similar products, making those kinds of suggestions can help a visitor discover other products that you carry in that catalog, in that product line. And so putting those kind of front and center, you land on the product detail page, you're going to have that information in terms of pricing and the information around availability, information around the product itself. And then usually towards the bottom of that page there, having that, here are some similar items, presenting those alternatives, those other suggestions that a visitor might be interested in, can be a really great tool for that informational visitor. Reviews, as we mentioned before, as well, letting your visitors see what other customers have ranked that product as. Talking about either just text reviews or actual star reviews can be important to let a visitor filter against that information to find specifically, maybe I'm only looking for those 5-star items, or only looking for 4 and above, or so on and so forth. And then be able to actually read those and see, okay, well, this product visitor might have described the exact use case that I'm trying to solve for, and this worked great for it, or maybe it didn't work great for it. You're really just trying to make sure that you're getting the best information to that visitor using these kinds of tools. Autocomplete, recommendations, driving things like putting out reviews front and center, and making sure informational content like specification sheets and PDFs and other documentation can be discoverable on the site. Now, that's going to be one of the very first kinds of ways. This is kind of the start of someone's journey through a site. The next one that we commonly see in the kind of segmentation of user intent. So I've landed on the site. I know specifically what I'm looking for as a searcher, as our second user type here. A searcher is someone who specifically knows this is exactly what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for information on this product. I know the product number. I know the SKU number. I might know the attribution around it I'm looking for. A 2-ounce amber glass jar. I'm going to type that in and be very specific around what I am looking for. This is someone who can be very specific with their experience. And so you don't need to necessarily cater towards giving them lots of different options here. You want to make sure that when they hit that search bar and they're being that specific, they're expressing their intent to you, that you're leveraging that as much as possible. So the common habits of a searcher is, of course, they're going to use the search bar. That is, they know exactly what they're looking for. They're not looking to go through kind of navigation options. They're not looking to do research or any kind of gathering. They're going to hit that search bar, plug in exactly what they're looking for. And the expectation from their end is that they're going to find what they're looking for by using that. Now, the opportunity there is, of course, you want to make sure that they can get to that checkout process as quickly as possible. If they know exactly what they're looking for, you want to get out of their way. You want to make sure that those search results do honor the exact right request that they put in, that they can get through that checkout process, maybe even through the autocomplete, that they're able to find, maybe if it's only one result that matches, you're going to redirect them to that specific product detail page so they can get through that process even quicker. Now, there are opportunities for complementary products, doing loyalty programs as well. Adding, especially in the B2B space where things are commonly being repurchased, you can use it as an opportunity to say, hey, you're buying this. Did you need to stock up on X, Y, and Z? Using those as opportunities to help kind of increase the average order value of that transaction. But what are the tools that you can rely on then? Well, we've already kind of touched a little bit about those, but let's dive a bit deeper into those topics there. So from our end, what we're really thinking about is one of the key things that you should look for helping drive the searcher is a really robust autocomplete. An autocomplete can go by several different names. When you start thinking about this from the search perspective, sometimes it's referred to as a type ahead, suggest ahead, and auto suggest. It goes by a lot of different names. At HawkSearch, we refer to it as an autocomplete. And really, this is that functionality when you go to the search box and you start to type in what you're looking for, it's going to go ahead and suggest items that match against that term, suggest maybe different categories that match against that term, show popular searches that match against that term. In the use case of a searching user, that's my intent, I know specifically what I'm looking for, having a really robust autocomplete can be key in driving and moving that visitor from a searching intent to a transactional intent, because you're going to get that information front and center and you can guide them along. You'll notice here in this little screenshot that we have, I've started to type in part number 9006, and we can see that the autocomplete is making that as a suggestion. It's suggesting alternatives to that as well as showing me the exact product matches that match against that type, that search that I've typed in so far. So I'm looking for the SYL 9006-60W. I can select that directly from that autocomplete and don't even need to execute my search. Just going to go really quickly through that process. One of the other things that you can think about, though, then if someone does get to the actual product detail page, let's say I'm not doing a part number search, I'm doing this through more an attribute-based search where I'm looking for, again, that 2-ounce amber glass jar. That can land a visitor on some search results, but you want to make sure that you're having really good facets and filters to help that visitor get specifically what they're looking for. So in the example you'll see up there on the top right, we're using the information kind of a year, make, model fitment for tires in this regard. Making sure that we're selecting what kind of vehicle are we looking for, the year, make, model information, and getting the visitor directly to that product set as well. Again, another example of searching isn't just using that direct search box, but being able to make sure that when someone lands on that set of results, that they're able to very quickly narrow into the products they're looking for. Now, something to keep in mind is also making sure that from a category perspective, this is something that is intuitive to visitors, that they understand what they're looking for, that you don't have, subcategories buried too deep in the attribution. This can be a little bit more of kind of a data-driven approach as well, but making sure that a visitor can clearly understand where they're landing in the navigation choices that they're making to know that they're going to find what they're looking for. Now, the next segmentation that we want to talk about is kind of the one who isn't the informational visitor. They know what they're looking for, but they don't know maybe the exact way to describe it. So they're not going to go towards that search box because they don't have the part number. They don't have all the attribution that they're looking for, but they kind of know generally what they're looking for. And so they're going to look for a little guidance to help them get there. In our terminology, we refer to this as the navigational segmentation. So another point to think about this from the UI perspective is you can have a really good search box, and that's obviously something that is important. You can do things like recommendations, and you can have a really rich autocomplete. But if your navigation choices are also lacking, this can be an opportunity for improvement, because this can help a visitor who is in that navigational state of, I know I'm looking for some conduit, but maybe I don't know the exact kind of conduit that I'm looking for, if that should ever actually happen. But just as an example there, where someone can walk through and say, I'm looking for a fuse box. I'm looking for, whatever the use case might be. I'm looking for some safety glasses. And I don't have a lot of preferences around safety glasses, but I know that I'm looking for them. This might be something where we can use that guidance to help a visitor get to what they're looking for and present them with the right opportunities there. So what are those common habits? Well, it's as I was describing. They're going to be casually browsing. They're going to be using category pages. They're going to be using recommendations. They're going to be using the other information that the site's presenting to them to find what they're looking for versus going to the search box. The difference there between the informational visitors that they know what they're looking for. They just haven't looking to have someone guide them a little bit more towards that. So this is also someone who's open to suggestions. So as an opportunity for your site, these are the chances where you can say, "Hey, here are our top sellers. Here are the brands we recommend for you." You can curate those options again to say, if I'm, I know that I'm buying these safety glasses. Where here's the different, the straps to make it attached. Here's the lens cleaning kits, and so on and so forth. These are the visitors who are going to be more open to those kinds of experiences because they're in that kind of guidance. They're looking for those suggestions. One thing to keep in mind here, again, you're going to notice there are some common overlays between this functionality. This is one of the great things about looking at this from a perspective of how can I help improve the experience. Facets and filters, making variations to the accessories and making sure that those are all easy to navigate. This is something that you can think about from a navigational visitor, but this will also help improve the searcher's experience. This will also help improve the informational visitor's experience as well. But you want to make sure that you're looking at each one of these areas of that user experience with these different segmentations in mind, because they are going to have different kinds of needs and different use cases that they're trying to answer for. So let's walk through some of the tooling that you can expect to take advantage of in that regard there. So what tools assist these users? Again, we're going to talk about the autocomplete. That can be suggestions where you can see in this example here, in addition to typing in the keyword that I'm looking for speakers in this example here. We're going to make suggestions from the popular searches. We're going to show some products, but the top categories are what we want to focus on from this autocomplete example here. When we were showing the example from a part number, that was a really specific example. And that, again, the autocomplete should adapt to that and show the relevant information for that. In this use case, where we're being a little bit more broad in our search, we know we're looking for speakers, but we don't know necessarily what brand speaker or what size or, any of those other attributes. Here's an idea where we can go ahead and guide that visitor to the category that they're specifically looking for. Are they looking for an outdoor speaker? Are they looking for smart speakers? Do we want to just suggest accessories for those, things like speaker wire? Now, you do want to make sure you can also account for those other use cases where things are being a little bit more specific, where someone might have some values. So you do want to account for those in those. But the facets and filters that we're showing you, there are examples of what we're talking about in the top right, where we're showing you the type equals metal, the length equals 24 foot. You want to make sure that you can help that visitor once they've navigated to that point, that they can find specifically what they're looking for. Again, carrying over that idea of, well, what's important to focus on from the user experience of a navigational visitor. Facets and filters are going to be just as important for them as someone who is searching, as someone who is using an informational point of view. It's just the different expectations of what they're looking to get out of that you want to keep in mind. Recommendations are also going to be important. We mentioned this is something that is an opportunity to kind of help increase that average order value, but by making sure that when a visitor is getting to, let's go back to that speaker example there. I've landed on the speakers. I've done, use the category suggestion there to find kind of what I'm looking for. Well, now that I'm there, maybe we want to make suggestions for the speaker wire or for the stands that might go along with that, or the subwoofer that would go with this. These are the common things that someone who is a navigational visitor is going to be more open to, because they're looking to have that guidance of, I might have started thinking I need some speakers, but now that I'm going through this whole process, I'm like, oh yeah, no, I need this, and I need that, I need this. You're guiding them towards that to help them kind of complete the purchase in one big go. So these are all really important things to think about. One last thing to highlight here that's not really something you can show through an image is going to be something like machine learning. A navigational visitor is going to be one of the ones that can be most open to these kind of suggestions. Machine learning in kind of the search space has several different connotations. The example that we can show you here as a kind of a reference, the top product categories that we were talking about earlier. You'll notice speaker wire is the first suggestion, whereas outdoor speakers and smart speakers are secondary to that. Well, that could be informed through machine learning. Maybe speaker wire is what's more commonly being interacted with from your visitors. Machine learning can learn that about your visitors and what they're searching on, and suggest not only what's relevant to them, but also show them specifically what's more likely to be interacted with. Same thing for the different products that are being returned, tracking, well, when someone has done this search, what are they more commonly looking to add to cart? What are they more commonly purchasing? What are visitors just in general interacting with out of these search results? And using those signals to improve the ranking of the results that are being returned, to make sure that when that navigational visitor does those more broad searches, that they're going to see back in not just the most relevant results, but the best results for that search term based off of what other visitors have done. So it can be a really powerful tool to leverage that machine learning to help improve those search results, in addition to these other functionality we've been mentioning. Now, last but not least, we do want to make sure that we are also talking about kind of the end goal here. What's the point of all of this exercise is to get someone to that transactional state. And the first three states that we're talking about, the segmentations that we've been talking about, of these are visitors who are going to be, doing that informational searches. These are visitors who are going to be specifically searching for exactly what they're looking for, or I'm making more navigational choices to find what I'm looking for. The end goal is to get everyone towards this transactional state. This is the I'm looking to purchase. I've got my credit card in hand. I am ready to actually convert off of that. So how do we help that process along? And this is really more about making sure that we're getting the average order value up through here. At this point, they have found what they're looking for, either through doing those informational, that researching kind of aspect. They found it. Now they're looking to purchase. They've done that exact search. We want to go ahead and show them during that transaction. What else can we add for them? They've done those navigational choices. What else can we help them find as part of that? And so you might have been noticing as we were going through those earlier examples that I was kind of commonly referring to these are the next steps that you can take on this. And this is really kind of the end goal here. Looking at this more holistically, what are the things that you can do here? Increase those average order values through cross sells and upsells, suggesting complementary accessories, loyalty programs, and especially in the B2B world, making it easy for visitors to come back, doing reordering paths, and understanding that the visitor might be coming back. So if they were on the site previously and they bought these 4 products and now they're back on the site, especially in this space where we see a lot of kind of repeat purchases, when they come back to the site, leverage the recommendations and the personalization functionality to say, here are the products that you previously purchased. Are you looking to purchase those again? One creates kind of a bond through the user to make them feel that, hey, this site does remember who I am. They know what I'm looking for, but it also will get them quicker towards that transactional state. So high level, let's go ahead and talk about some of the tools that can assist the users in this functionality here. It's going to be things, again, like your recommendations, showing recommended accessories, showing similar items, showing what the visitor was previously looking at, what they previously had searched for, what they previously purchased, leveraging those to really help drive that. Doing things like your reorder paths, showing what they previously purchased and making it a really quick functionality there to say, repeat this order that I previously purchased. And really kind of helping to, do like abandoned cart messaging can help out in that regard as well. And doing things like spotlighting, hey, you've done a search for, again, let's go back to that speaker example. I've done a search for speakers, and then using spotlighting within those results to say, hey, here are some things that we think will go with that. Again, just to kind of increase that average order value because you've gotten them to that transactional state. Now, I know we're coming up here on time, and I do want to make sure if we do have any time for questions, please, again, just as a reminder, feel free to submit them to the chat. We'll be more than happy to answer them with the time that we have left. But before we get to that point there, I'm going to go ahead and tackle the last point that we want to highlight to really help drive the best experiences that we can get for your visitors. The last tip that we would drive to help out there is going to be the reporting and analytics. This is something that we commonly say in our space. It's almost become kind of cliche at this point, at least internally it's become cliche, but data is the new oil. And what do we mean by that? It's really kind of the lifeblood of your business and understanding what's happening. How can we improve? Are our strategies that we've put in place actually performing, and are they effective? So this is really something that we want to help highlight. We want to just kind of reiterate that with all of this, if you start thinking about this from the idea of, what I've set up these kind of changes to help approach my informational visitors. I really want to make sure that these functionalities are driving the searchers that are on our site. We want to make sure that we have good navigational experiences for our site. How can you prove any of this out? How can you make sure that you're actually delivering on those? Well, by relying on reporting analytics that you have available to you, you can make sure that you are looking for different testing opportunities. So, if I make this change to this set of facets and filters that are available, do we get better engagement than what we currently have? They can identify use cases where you can clean up your data. That's a very common pain point in this space, is that, vendor A might have inches stored as INCH, and this vendor might have it stored as INCHES, and vendor C might have it stored as a double quotation. Those are opportunities that reporting and analytics can help you highlight. Is this a stumbling point that your customers are currently struggling with? And what can you do to help solve for that? And it's also important to keep in mind that you look at this regularly. I know it's something that's not the most flashy of things to do, but if you make it a regular habit of getting into there and looking at the reports, it can really help kind of guide you towards, well, where are the trends in my site experiences going? Are visitors having a lot of trouble with this search that we're seeing? Is this becoming a trending search? Is this, what's leading towards those conversions? So, with all of that said, what do we mean by actually the reporting analytics that you should highlight? So, I wanted to pull back in several different suggestions of the similar reports that you might want to look at. Now, these are pulled from the Hawk Search tooling here. These, there can be other reporting analytics that are similar to what we're looking at here, but these are just some of the things that we would like to highlight. If you have access to similar reports, these are the ones that you'd want to look at. Some key things to look at. I'm going to call attention to a couple of them very quickly here. One of the ones that we would always want to make sure that we're paying attention to are your searches with poor results, because these are going to be those searches that visitors execute and get back in nothing. So did I, misspell a word? Do you not have any kind of spell correction? That's a good thing that you can highlight through a searches with poor results report. Are visitors searching for a brand that you don't carry, but you carry the other versions of that? Again, that would lead towards 0 results, but you can very clearly identify, oh, they're searching for the brand that we don't have. So there's going to be other tools that you can use to make sure the visitor's finding what they're looking for. The other end of that is going to be those searches without clicks. So this is a report that can give you access into understanding what searches are happening on your site where they did get back in results. So it's different than the searches with poor results report. So they're getting back in results when they're doing these searches, but they're not interacting with them. I've done a search for, Sylvania light bulb, and now that I've gotten back in my results, I didn't click on anything. I didn't select any products. I didn't do any facets or filter selections. That can be a pain point. That can help you understand, well, what do I need to look at for this search that's happening here? Our visitors, do we have the right facets and filters that are available? Are we missing, the wattage that someone's going to be commonly looking to refine by? These are going to help expose those areas where you can help improve the experience. And kind of building off of that, looking at your top 250 facets, these are going to let you understand, well, out of those left-hand navigation options, those facets and filters, what are your visitors actually engaging with? Are you seeing gaps where people are really commonly selecting this value, but then we're not getting any kind of interactions or conversions off of that? And of course, going into things like your conversion tracking, understanding what search is actually leading towards conversions, looking at things like your top 250 search keywords. So understanding just in general, what are visitors searching for on your site? We talked earlier about the spell correction for the searches with poor results. Well, that's another kind of report that you'd want to look at and understand. Are visitors on my site doing searches and not actually selecting or not getting back in the corrected terms that we'd anticipate? Last but not least here, we'd also want to highlight any redirects. So something that we think about from the navigational perspective, that navigational segment, is that it's a very common use case to go to the search box and search for a broad term like speaker. If I was to search for that term, what might make a better experience is to redirect them towards our speaker category of content versus showing them the search results. So understanding those redirects, what makes sense in that regard, these are all kind of good reports to take a look at and can really help you focus in on that experience. Now, I know I talked a whole bunch there, so I believe we're almost up here at the half hour. But if there were any questions, please feel free to submit them to the chat. Otherwise, I would like to take a second here to say thank you for taking the time to sit down and watch this presentation. Hopefully, you got some great information out of it. It's been wonderful to join Jim here and go through this presentation with you guys. I'd like to say thank you for taking the time and for joining us today.